Welcome to Behind the Case podcast, a podcast that focuses on navigating the challenges our clients face with divorce and family law in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. Behind the Case is brought to you by the Turner Monahan legal team, with over 70 years of collective experience in divorce and family law. Together, Tyler Monahan, Keaton Monahan, Tina Campbell, and the Turner Monahan team will discuss real-life cases, answer questions, and explore family law areas from divorce to child custody. Our goal is to clarify scenarios and demystify legal jargon, making the process less daunting and reminding you that you're not alone. So sit back and let's discuss what happens behind the case. What happens if the mother is trying to relocate with her children after a divorce?
In Texas, typically there is a geographic restriction, which usually prohibits the parent who determines the primary residence of the kiddo from moving out of a certain geographic area. The standard here in the Metroplex is Tarrant and contiguous counties. So Tarrant County and any county that touches it, you can move anywhere in that area. As long as dad's still living in that area, you typically cannot move. And there's just not really much you can do about it. Texas is pretty serious about keeping Texas kids in Texas. And our counties are real serious about keeping the kids in the area where they've been. Because the court's perspective is they want to impact the kiddos the least amount. So if they've been in the same schools and they've been in the same area, courts don't want you up and relocating and extracting the kiddos. Much less if the other parent is super involved and they live nearby, the court's not going to give you permission to move them halfway across the country, and then that stops that other parent from being able to have reasonable access to the kiddo. So it can be done. Don't get me wrong. It can be. It's rare. And it takes some really special, specific facts. It's not just because my family lives 200 miles away and I can live with them and it's a better financial situation for me. That's not going to do it. Or, I have a job over there and it's going to pay me $5 more an hour. That's not going to do it.
And it's going to require a motion to be filed with the court.
Yes.
And the court to make that decision. It's not just an argument between the parents.
No. So typically I let all my clients know you're here, you're going to be here, and you're most likely going to be here until that kiddo is 18 or graduates from high school.
Well, and what I always say to my clients too is, not to sound like a code book, but it's the public policy of the state of Texas that the children have frequent contact with both parents. And that it's in the best interest of the children to have frequent contact with each parent, because that if you ask, we don't talk to the children because that makes we become witnesses. But when the kids tell the judge or their counselors what they want, almost always they're going to tell the counselor or the judge they just want their parents to be back in the same house. Fighting, not fighting, they just want their family under one roof. Now, we know that that's not always in the best interest of the children, but kids just they want both parents. And that's something that the court and the legislature recognizes, and that's why Texas keeps the parents close to each other.
What effects is divorce going to have on a mother being able to raise her children with the upbringing she always wanted, thinking about education?
When you get divorced, there are certain rights and duties that are divided amongst the parents. So it depends. If a mother has the exclusive right to make all educational decisions for the kiddo, then she can pick and choose public school versus private school versus homeschool. If it's a joint right, then she has to get to the agreement of the other party. If it's the other person's right, she's at their mercy as to what they get to do. So all of those are kind of dictated to a certain degree by what's in the final decree of divorce, because we do divide out who makes decisions regarding invasive medical decisions, who makes decisions for psychiatric and psychological treatments for the children, educational decisions, or those are kind of we call them the big three. Those are the big three that we always make sure is, specifically allocated and everybody understands, because those are the really super critical decisions for your kiddos kind of be moving forward in the future. As far as religious training, each parent has the right to teach the children the religion of their choice when the child's in their possession. So if it's your weekend and you want to take your child to a Catholic church, you get to. It's dad's weekend and he's a Baptist, he gets to take the kiddo to a Baptist church. and there's nothing we can do to stop that one way or the other. So there is part of it that's really no different than if you stay married in the same household. You still got to talk about it. You still got to work together. You still have to make some of these decisions together for the most part. But if they have been allocated so that one parent does have that exclusive right, then it's completely within your purview. Now, from a co-parenting perspective, even if mom has the exclusive right to make decisions, I strongly encourage her, all my clients, to at least communicate with the other parent so that there can be some collaboration. Doesn't mean you have to do what the other parent wants, but at least involve them so that you give them the respect that they deserve for being the other parent of your kiddo. Because if the tables were turned, you would want the same privilege. And so that's what I remind my clients. Just because the court order says you can, doesn't always mean you should without having a conversation.
Let's switch gears a little bit. The mother who's gone through the divorce is ready to start a new family and has moved on to get married. She's thinking about having kids. How will this impact the custody agreement she currently has with her ex and any financial support the ex or father may have given?
It has absolutely no impact on the custody agreement, because whether or not she's married or has a live-in whatever or has other children, that has no impact on what the court order already says between her and her former person. It has no impact on child support, because mom's income and the income coming into her home is not a factor in the calculation of child support that the other parent pays for the benefit of the children. The only thing it could impact is if in the divorce mom had received some type of spousal maintenance. Oftentimes there is a statement that says that if mom remarries, then that spousal maintenance ends. So that could be something that she needs to look at in regards to the terms of her decree. But no issues in regarding to visitation, no issues in regarding to child support, no issues in regarding to medical support either.
All right, so let's look at some different stakeholders that go through divorce. So you have the client, you have the mother, the father, the children, any other people that are involved in the situation. Is there anything extended family members can do to either support or be involved to help the mother going through this divorce transition?
Well, and to help either parent, still be involved. If you were the grandparent who always took your kid to soccer practice, still take them to soccer practice. There's no reason for your relationship with the children to change in any way, shape, or form. Now, you do have to recognize that if y'all are all at the soccer game together and the other parent shows up, you have to be cordial and pleasant to that other person.
Yeah.
You don't have to be their best friend, but you don't need to make a big show about, oh my gosh, so-and-so's here, and make a big deal out of it. The peripheral family and the extended family are critical during this time. If these were people that were always involved in the kid's life to begin with, they're even more important now, because the kid needs to know that nothing has changed in regards to the peripheral family. And sometimes that takes sitting down with those extra family members and going, look, this is how we're going to behave. This is how things are going to be done. This is how we're going to operate moving forward, so that they understand that they can't ostracize the other parent, and that the other parent isn't a lesser parent just because there's been a divorce or a separation.
How does a new partner or spouse affect or be considered in any legal matters?
The only people who are involved in this is mom and dad. Period. They're the only people court orders are going to deal with. They're the only people that are going to be involved as far as having rights to make decisions and things like that. And that's one of the reasons why it can be very hard blending families together, because the new step parent on the other side may feel like they get a say. In all reality, they do not. They just don't. And oftentimes, that's when we see the biggest number of modifications. Right. When a new spouse is involved or a new baby is born, and somebody decides that they're going to make so-and-so the great parent that they're supposed to be. And it just knocks everything out of kilter. That is 99% of the reason we see modifications.
A lot of times it's new stepmoms.
Yeah.
Come in and, well, they are now going to be mom and they're going to take over. And very recently, in both of our cases, we've had stepmoms remove mom from the school records and put stepmom as mom. And it is a whole thing to get that switched back around. And that's stepping over the line. You can be a wonderful and helpful step parent and a perfect additional bonus parent to that child rather than an enemy to the other parent. And so, I mean, it can work, and it can be a very positive experience for a child. I mean, your child is a perfect example.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I was divorced when my kiddo was 6, got married to my current husband when he was 10, 11. He's now in his 20s. And he is thrilled about the fact that he has stepdad that he has a good, strong relationship with, and dad that he has a wonderful, strong relationship with, and the fact that all 3 of them can be in the same place at the same time, and there's no jealousy and there's no anything. But my husband recognized when he came into the relationship that though he's stepdad, and he can have a say in the fact that he can voice an opinion, at the end of the day, myself and my ex-husband were the decision makers in regards to our kiddo. Now, again, I was blessed. My ex-husband was interested in my husband's opinion, and so it was taken into consideration. But there were many times with my son growing up where we made a decision that was not necessarily what my husband agreed with, but he also understood that it wasn't his place to decide. And give an opinion doesn't necessarily get a vote. So I think that's something that before you move into that new relationship, before you say I do, you should probably have a very serious conversation about how this is going to work. Because everything's always lovely and fun during the engagement period and when everything's all new. But when they start turning into teenagers and hard decisions have to be made and punishments have to be decided and control has to be dealt with, you really need to have had that conversation a little earlier on instead of right then for the first time in front of the kiddos, because it's hard raising children in the best of circumstances. Mm-hmm. And if you have somebody trying to thwart the process because they think they know better, but they're not a parent, it's going to be really, really hard.
All right, I'd love to shift and really talk about any specific cases you've had with mothers who are going through divorce experiences like these. What are some questions they've had while they're going through the process, and how did you help them get through it? Let's take a quick pause here. If you or someone you know is navigating divorce or family law matters in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, reach out to Turner Monahan for a free legal consultation. Call us at 817-332-4477 or visit us at tumolaw.com. That's TUMOLAW.com for a free legal consultation. Now, let's get back to Behind the Case.
If the other parent is doing something illegally, that's an issue.
Oh.
And there are cases in which one parent have a lot more financial disposable income that they can continue to litigate and encourage witnesses not to come forward or to testify in their favor. And unfortunately, the parent who doesn't have the funds to fund ongoing decade-long litigation process, the kids get hurt, and the courts are left to, they can only hear what evidence is presented to them. And so if pro se litigant, which is a party that is not represented by counsel and they represent themselves, they are held to the same standard as an attorney. So if a party is coming to court because they have the finances to do so, whether they have factual grounds or not, but they have painted them in a way that the court sees them as a legal grounds for them to flip custody or keep the other parent from the mom or the dad, the party who represents themselves, you don't know what you don't know. And they oftentimes are at a huge disadvantage because they are not able to represent to the court the proper legal argument to combat the other side. And I think that's the hardest thing that I see, especially most recently. And it really is harmful to the kids. I mean, all the money in the world and all the counseling in the world can't fix what parents break in their kids. And that's really hard to see.
And the other thing is the other piece of advice I would say is don't ignore the circumstance. We do have parents, you're doing your day to day, you're doing your life, and you're trying to just survive and get by and raise a good, competent kid. And then a lawsuit comes up that you are not expecting. You're not financially prepared for it. You're not emotionally prepared for it, because it's always shocking and it's always scary. Don't ignore it. For goodness sakes, don't ignore it. That is the last thing you can do. Even if you only have like a tiny amount of bandwidth, contact an attorney and at least get some advice about how to proceed, at least to the first step, so that you can make sure you don't get defaulted and that you're not having to then run back up the mountain. Because if you get to a position where you've buried your head in the sand just because, and we all understand that. We have all had those moments in our lives where we don't have the mental capacity to be able to deal with one more thing. But these are your children.
And default, just so it's out there, is you failed to respond to the lawsuit. Mm-hmm. So the other parent, and if it's a modification, the other parent can take an order to the court at any time after your answer period has passed and present an order to the court that defaults the other parent.
Which basically means they get what they want.
Yes.
Without you being able to say, this is a terrible decision for my children. They get to walk in and go, yeah, she didn't respond. She's not doing anything. So here you go, judge. I want custody and I'm going to do all these things. So do not.
And if you defaulted, you can't appeal that. You can appeal, but you're not going to win.
No, it's very hard to come back from that and explain to the court that you're the parent who should be the person to make all these decisions for your kiddos, but you couldn't manage to respond to a lawsuit timely. So don't ignore.
Agreed.
So what are some do's and don'ts that you would tell mothers going through a divorce? What are 3 things they should do and 3 things they shouldn't?
If you know in advance and you can make a plan and you can start preparing, put money away. Get financial resources hidden away. Protect your assets. Make sure you know passwords to bank accounts. Make sure you know the passwords to the credit cards. Make sure you have an idea of what the financial picture is. I don't know how many times you and I both have seen women who've come in, and even a few times men who've come in and go, I don't do anything with the finances. I have no access. I don't know what bank we use. I don't know what credit cards we have. I don't know if we have any savings. I have no idea if he has retirement. I don't know. I use this one credit card and that's what I do everything on. And I have no idea what the balance is. That's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. So even if that's not information you normally have access to, start getting it. Start figuring it out. Set up your own bank account that he has no access to. That he has, I even encourage it to be in a whole different bank so that there can be no confusion. Because even when my ex-husband and I got divorced, I set up a separate account in the same bank. The bankers knew us. They did not know we were going through a divorce, but they knew us. And so it happened more than one occasion where money was transferred from my separate account into our joint account or from our joint account into his separate account because the bankers just made a mistake. So, and it was not because he was trying to do anything sneaky or me, but I would strongly encourage a whole different bank, a whole new account, redirect your paycheck into that account so that you have access to your funds and you don't wake up one morning and poof, there's nothing. Figure out a plan for kiddos. What's it going to look like with kiddos? Think about how you're going to discuss it with them. They don't need to know the play-by-play. That's not their business. Those are adult things.
Right.
But they are going to have to know if you're going to move into a new house or if daddy's going to move into a new place.
Or you have to move into grandparents' house for a little while.
Yeah.
They need to know that they don't need to be surprised.
No.
And so if you can prepare the kids and depending on their ages, the teachers too, just let them know, hey, this is what's going on. And that's going to help the kids so much and also everyone around you so that they are not suspicious or grandparents are suddenly picking up the kids more. So, what's the problem here? I think that's definitely a good plan. And as far as the financial planning goes, a lot of women a lot of spouses, especially the stay-at-home spouses where maybe the other spouse was a higher earner or the only earner, they're driving a car that's $100,000 car and their payments are $1,500 a month. And they don't even know that. Look at that because you may need to consider getting a different vehicle soon. So you're not underwater, before the divorce is even finalized. I mean, just if you can see it on the horizon, the divorce coming, definitely make all those plans in advance.
And think about, I've mentioned before, the practical aspects. I have oftentimes had women call me and go, well, I want to keep the house. I want to raise my children in this house. I brought them home. They need to stay in this house. Okay. Well, what's the mortgage payment? $3,500 a month. Great. What do you do for a living? I don't work. Okay. How are you going to refinance this home into your name only, pay him a portion of the equity, and make the mortgage payments, the utility payments, buy the groceries, do all the things? Well, he's going to have to pay that. Why? If y'all are divorced, there may be certain circumstances where spousal maintenance absolutely could be ordered, but it's rare.
And it's for a short period of time.
And it's not often, and it's not much, and it doesn't last long. So you can't rely on that concept. We can rely on that for a temporary basis for a little while, but you need to really think about that. And it's taken some of my female clients a little while to wrap their head around the concept that they're not going to live in the same neighborhood. They can't afford it. And so really thinking about how am I going to get from point A to point B and pay these bills and be independent? Because the faster you're financially self-sufficient, the faster there's less hold of the other parent or the other party over you.
Yeah.
So that's very, very important. And I guess the last bit of advice we give to all of our clients is watch your communications. This is not the time to start writing dissertation-length text messages about every tiny horrific thing this person has done in your life. No, keep it short and sweet and simple. If you're having to communicate about kids, are you picking them up? Not, are you picking them up because I have to check because you never get there on time? There's no reason for any of that.
Right.
Just, are you picking it up? And if he sends some sort of text message back that's very disparaging and that kind of a thing, I encourage my clients to remember, you don't have to join the argument. Unless there was a question in there, you have no reason to defend yourself to this other person.
Right.
If you had any ability to convince this other person about your greatness, you wouldn't be in the position you're about to be in.
Yeah.
So let it go. Don't worry about their opinion. Don't worry about what they write. Answer their questions about the kids or whatever relevant information you need to about the property or the debts or whatever, and ignore the rest. Do not fall into the trap of having to respond negatively and feeling like you have to defend yourself, because it just always sounds terrible when it's being read out loud in the courtroom. And it will be read out loud in the courtroom. So just short and sweet, to the point, period.
To wrap it up, if a mother is currently facing this situation, what are some immediate steps you think she should take?
Financial planning, plans for the kids, plans for housing, and then contact an attorney. Absolutely.
Yes.
So you can figure out, particularly in your area, in your municipality, kind of what to expect.
Thank you so much, Tina and Heather, for joining us today. How can they reach you, and what areas do you serve?
We handle cases in Tarrant, Parker, Johnson, Ellis County as well. We will occasionally go to Denton. We do not typically cross the border and go to Dallas. Life is too short to practice law in Dallas. But in some circumstances we will. But typically we stay here within the Fort Worth Metroplex. And you can contact us through our website, through emails, through telephone. Misty is here. She answers our phone on a regular basis and does our client consultations and is absolutely wonderful. So any of those methods work.
817-332-4477. And our website is tumolaw.com. That's TUMOLAW.com.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Behind the Case. If this episode offered insight or helped clarify some aspect of divorce and family law, we encourage you to subscribe and share it with others who might benefit. For those in the DFW area that are in need of a legal consultation, you can reach us at tumolaw.com. That's TUMOLAW.com or 817-332-4477 to schedule a free legal consultation. Remember, the journey through legal matters can be complex, but you don't have to navigate it alone. Until our next discussion, take care. Please note that the information provided in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended as legal advice. Listening to this podcast or contacting our team does not constitute an attorney-client relationship. For advice on your specific situation, please consult with a licensed attorney in your area.